Micro-investing in physical assets and tangible scarcity, the new wealth trend hiding in plain sight. Channel, nobody told us this. For a long time, many people were taught to think about wealth in a very abstract way. Numbers on screens, digital accounts, constant movement, constant updates. And while modern financial systems have created enormous opportunities, something interesting has quietly started happening. A growing number of people are becoming more interested in tangible assets, physical scarcity, and ownership connected to something concrete. Not because they're trying to escape modern investing completely, but because many people are beginning to value durability, scarcity, and physical relevance differently than before. That's what we're talking about in this video, not financial advice, but a broader shift in how some people are beginning to think about value, ownership, and long-term resilience. One of the biggest psychological shifts happening right now is this. People are becoming more interested in tangible ownership, because increasingly, many people feel disconnected from the things they own financially. Everything feels fast, digital, abstract, constantly changing. And as the world becomes more virtual, some people naturally start becoming more interested in assets connected to physical scarcity, craftsmanship, and real-world demand. That shift is important, because throughout history, human beings have consistently valued things that are difficult to reproduce, things with limited supply, things tied to real-world usefulness. And that pattern continues today in different forms.
One thing that makes certain physical assets attractive is they are finite. There are only so many. Rare industrial materials, vintage timepieces, specialty collectibles, rare earth resources, highly productive land areas, historically significant items, and in some cases, demand continues increasing while availability remains limited. That creates a very different psychological relationship with ownership, because unlike endlessly duplicated digital experiences, physical scarcity feels concrete, durable, measurable, real, and for some people that matters enormously, especially in a world where so much attention is now focused on things that exist primarily online. Now, obviously, most people cannot buy luxury collections, massive land holdings, rare historical assets. So another trend has started growing, fractional ownership and micro-investing, meaning people gaining smaller exposure to tangible assets, collectible markets, industrial materials, without needing enormous amounts of capital. And this appeals to many people because it creates accessibility, diversification of ownership, and a stronger emotional connection to what they hold. Because psychologically, ownership feels different when people can visualize what exists, why it matters, and why it may remain valuable, what fractional ownership actually is. Now, if someone has never heard of fractional ownership before, the concept is actually pretty simple. Instead of one person buying an entire high-value asset, a platform allows multiple people to own small portions of it. For example, a rare luxury watch worth tens of thousands of dollars may be purchased, authenticated, securely stored, and divided into smaller ownership shares. Then individuals can buy partial exposure instead of needing enough money to purchase the entire item themselves. The same concept is now appearing across collectibles, luxury assets, rare materials, specialty commodities, and other niche ownership categories. Now, obviously, these markets still involve risk. Values can rise or fall, demand can change, and not every asset appreciates. But the bigger shift is that technology is making certain forms of ownership accessible to far more people than before. And that changing relationship with ownership is what makes this trend so interesting. The deeper story here is not really about collectibles or rare materials, it's about how people define value. For years, many people focused heavily on speed, convenience, rapid growth, digital expansion, but now some people are starting to think more carefully about permanence, durability, scarcity, utility, and long-term relevance. That's a major psychological shift, because when the world becomes increasingly fast and intangible, many people naturally start appreciating things that feel grounded, limited, enduring, and connected to reality, and physical assets often represent that emotionally. One interesting pattern throughout history is this. The assets that attract the most attention are not always the assets that quietly retain value over long periods of time. Sometimes, The loudest opportunities attract the shortest attention spans, while quieter assets attract patience, specialization, longer-term thinking, and deeper understanding. That's why some people spend years learning about rare materials, specialty commodities, land quality, collectibles, because they understand that not all value moves loudly. Some value compounds quietly through scarcity, utility, durability, and consistent demand over time. The danger of romanticizing physical assets. Now, this is important. Just because something is physical does not automatically make it valuable. Some collectible markets are speculative, difficult to price, emotionally driven, hard to resell, and people absolutely can lose money. So, the point of this video is not go buy random rare items. The real lesson is deeper than that. The lesson is pay attention to what people consistently value across time, especially during periods where digital overload increases, attention becomes fragmented, and people begin searching for things that feel more tangible and enduring. One of the most important wealth principles people eventually learn is this: value is not always obvious immediately. Some of the most enduring assets are overlooked, slow moving, quietly scarce, not flashy, not constantly discussed, not always exciting, and increasingly, some people are becoming more interested in understanding where scarcity exists, where utility remains strong, and where long-term demand may continue quietly growing beneath the surface. Because in many cases, the strongest opportunities are not always the loudest ones. So as you move forward, pay attention not only to what people are chasing, but also what people consistently continue valuing over long periods of time. Because major shifts in wealth thinking often begin when people start asking deeper questions about permanence, utility, scarcity, and tangible relevance. And increasingly, some people are becoming more interested in physical ownership not simply because it feels different, but because it feels more connected to something real. Not necessarily faster, not necessarily easier, but in some cases, more durable, more understandable, and more grounded in long-term human behavior. And whether that trend grows or not, it reveals something important about the modern world. A growing number of people are no longer only interested in convenience. They are becoming more interested in ownership they can actually understand and mentally connect to. Subscribe for more deep dives into wealth patterns, modern ownership strategies, tangible scarcity trends, and the structural changes quietly transforming how smart people protect and grow wealth in the years ahead. If this video gave you a new perspective, consider subscribing, liking the video, and sharing it with others who would benefit from this information. We're building a new channel focused on the quiet shifts most people overlook until much later, and your support genuinely helps us continue producing more in-depth content like this.